This is my first time here. I live in New Richmond and I'm a social worker. I was also a founding staff member of United Coalition for Animals in Cincinnati. I have PTSD, and I'd like to speak to the effects of the animal shelter management on community members' mental health. I think that it was about 2 weeks ago that I first started learning about this situation at the shelter. And all of it is so horrific and distressing that it triggered me to have a PTSD trauma response. I've spent the last weeks completely non-functional and extremely symptomatic, unable to leave the house. This situation is all that I can think about, and my heart aches for all of this unnecessary suffering being perpetrated and how Dave Painter is holding everyone hostage. It was hard for me to come here today as I'm still symptomatic, but this needs to be said. You, Dave Painter, are no different from those you prosecute for animal cruelty, except that you are much worse. You exploit your volunteers and staff who are members of the community and subject them to anguish. You tell the news media and the public that you have plenty of money for the shelter and that you're willing to shell out whatever is necessary, all the while forcing your staff to endure the unethical emotional distress of selectively making decisions on what animals will or won't receive medical care because you tell your staff that you have no budget for it. You are the very definition of a crooked politician, and the community is seeing that. Your behaviors have impacted the mental health of every single person in our community who has been made aware of this situation. And people are feeling the suffering from the sickness of this situation. Our community is caring and kind, and what you are doing to these animals does not reflect our values as a community. You're putting on a public show now that you've been exposed and claiming that you're making changes. But as you are not listening to the volunteers and community and making the real systemic change needed, none of your actions are going to resolve the issues at the shelter. You are already having problems with hiring and retaining staff just since you've attempted to start doing that. And you are hiring staff that is verbally abusing the animals, which the public would be horrified to see. The shelter needs effective leadership by someone with knowledge of animal welfare, clear established processes, an adequate budget, an adequate quality staff, expanded hours, and an on-site veterinarian. That Dave Painter is not providing all of these things is gross negligence. The shelter should be following best practices and recommended guidelines per the ASCPA position practices. Per the ASCPA position statement on responsibilities of animal shelters, minimum standards for medical protocols and processes for medical care should be established and available to the public in writing. That Dave Painter is not adhering to best practices and guidelines and being publicly transparent about his processes is unethical. I, like many in the community, had assumed that our local shelter was a safe facility for the animals. Clearly, that is not the situation. And in fact, it is the exact opposite. Dave Painter is not meeting his responsibilities to the shelter, to our community. He is not capable of meeting them, and he very obviously does not want to meet them. I demand that Dave Painter open up bids for the contract and allow our community to move on and to heal from him and this wound that he has created for all of us. Every person involved, and more importantly, every animal that is at that shelter has suffered enough.
Thank you.